Ladies and gentlemen, and aviation aficionados, welcome back to another episode of the Bagfather. On today's episode of the Bagfather, we're diving into the future of baggage with a true innovator in the industry. Our guest today is Jasper Quak, Managing Director of BAGTAG, the original electronic baggage tag company, leading the charge in digital baggage solutions. With a vision to completely overhaul the way airlines, crew, and passengers check in and track baggage, BAGTAG is helping move towards a smarter, paperless, and more efficient travel experience. Jasper brings years of experience in aviation technology and logistics, and he's here to share how BAGTAG is transforming baggage handling, the challenges of digitizing the industry, and what's next for seamless travel. Jasper, welcome to the Bagfather.
Thank you very much, Jen. Great to be here. Thanks for the invites.
Jasper, for the first time in our show, a fellow Dutchman.
Yes, we should have been maybe in the same room, Marlon, considering how close we live to each other.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I'm just back in the Netherlands, so that we could have done that. You were one of my top guests because I wanted to talk to you forever and ask you all the questions you normally not answer to me.
No pressure at all then.
So, Jasper, I recently returned from Seattle. I was at the Alaska Airways, and they are quite a big fan of your BAGTAG. Tell me everything about it, not only from Alaska, but the whole journey. What is BAGTAG? How did it start? I would like to know everything.
Well, that's a big question to begin with, but let me give it a try, Marlon. First of all, great to hear, of course, about the positive feedback you heard from Alaska Airlines. We're also thrilled to be working with them. It's an amazing journey. A little bit about BAGTAG. I always see BAGTAG as a logical evolution in the world of self-service. I think looking back in the 90s already, we've seen innovation like the first interline baggage tag. We've seen online checking coming up. And then we saw mobile checking coming up, albeit slowly, but it was there. But there was no way of introducing true self-service check-in of baggage to the passenger. In my mind, that's a missing link in getting as much of the entire process away from the airport as possible, because no one's benefiting from doing more at the airport, right? Not the airport, not the airline, not the passenger, definitely not the retailers at the airport. No one's happy about that. So you want people to arrive ready to go. And I think back when mobile checking was starting to grow, baggage was the main missing piece in that link of more self-service. So that's where the idea comes from, to get people check in their own luggage before arriving at the airport. And I know there's been more initiatives, right, on that front. There's been pickup services. There are still pickup services. There's been many different baggage tag initiatives, whether that's full RFID, only Bluetooth or whatnot. And what I believe the strength is of electronic bag tags, that they are backward compatible, right? So you can introduce them in an existing infrastructure, in an existing network. And we operate in a world of interdependencies and interconnectivity. So you have to be able to adhere to like the lowest common denominator to make something work. And I think that's the strength of an electronic bag tag. You can use it anywhere. You don't need to change anything in the infrastructure to make it work. So I think that's what really started it. Obviously, we've been on quite a journey. BAGTAG is celebrated its 10-year anniversary last year.
As a start, 10 years, that's a long time.
I think we're the oldest startup around. No, kidding aside, we've been through many phases and many different focuses, I would say. BAGTAG started out as a company trying to introduce the world's first secure and flexible electronic bag tag solution on the market. We did that. But we also recognized that for electronic bag tags to become a true success, interoperability is key. If the concept works, many different companies will start developing their own take on an electronic bag tag. They all will look differently, but in essence, they will all be doing the same. And I recognize the fact that for this to work, airlines are never going to be willing to do more than one integration for all the different vendors out there, and try and explain to a passenger that they can use their electronic bag tag with KLM, but not with Qatar Airways, while they're both embracing the concept. So that's where BAGTAG came in, and this is what we started doing from January 19. That's when I took over as CEO of the company. And that's where we started focusing on bringing together airlines, hardware suppliers, passengers, and we're now working on some new exciting things, but to bring that all together into an ecosystem. And that's working.
Jasper, I have a lot of questions. I'm sure Jen has a lot of questions as well. But to start with these questions, when I was in Seattle, it made me as proud as Jutta Leerdam were becoming the next ice skating queen when I was in Seattle. I have nothing to do with it, but you did quite a good job. Tell me a little bit about how does a journey look like with the average airline? When do they embrace the concept of an e-tag? What is the main profile of the decision maker actually who embraces the idea of BAGTAG?
Wow, good question. If I would have to answer a straight answer to that, Marlon, we will be working with every airline in the world, but we're not yet. So we're also still figuring that out. I would say an average journey, typically, even though the concept's been around, it's used across the world, we still have to prove it. So wherever we enter an airline's thinking, typically it's an innovation department, it's a customer experience team that's looking to improve self-service of options, or sometimes it's a baggage team with actual operational issues, but more often it's innovation and customer experience. More often than not, that starts with, conversations, some local testing, sometimes a contained trial or a soft launch. We've had to work a lot on all the different tools that we develop to make starting as easy as possible. So you can very easily experience your product yourself in an as real as possible environment without having to go all the way and shouting from the rooftops, hey, I'm doing this. Like with Alaska Airlines, whom you just visited, Marlon. It took us, I think, 1.5 or 2 years to get to the point where we are since as of end of last year.
So it's a very innovative team. They know what they're talking about. They have a good vision. And I think that the Alaska team also is such a big domestic market. It's a great starting ground, actually.
It's amazing to work with the guys. I mean, you asked me about the decision maker for this. And in the case of Alaska, we dealt with Charu Jain a lot. I actually met her this week in Lisbon at an Amadeus event. It does take vision. I won't lie and say electronic BAGTAGs are a drop-in replacement and just flip on the switch and you're done. You have to do more, right? If you decide to implement a concept like this, you need to think ahead. You need to think, why am I doing this? What's the target for this? Because we're not just doing it for fun, right? Because it involves many different departments. It involves frequent flyer programs. It involves communication. We need access to an airline's departure control system. They shouldn't give us that without a clear vision. So that's what we also push for. I also don't want to work with partners that don't have a clue. And luckily we don't. And I think Alaska is a special example of that. They really know what they're doing. They have a clear goal in mind. Customer experience, 5-minute lobby experience. That's all what it is.
And it's funny, before I give the word to Jen, I would expect it actually with full service carriers who are around with a lot of business travelers to make it more easy. You gave me one. I know how easy it is. I know how good it works. But I would expect it by Lufthansa, Singapore, or even BA. They are adopting it differently. Alaska went all in.
Is Alaska all of their passengers are utilizing? Or what is the breakdown of how they're providing these to their clients, or are they buying them themselves?
Well, I can't speak to the actual adoption numbers, but I can tell you the average net promoter score that we see from surveys with airlines is over 60.
I see a difference in adoption. If you look at Alaska Airlines with a huge domestic market, they went basically all in. They embraced the concept of BAGTAG. And basically I was referring to the full service carriers who have a lot of business class passengers, where I would have expected it to be adopted way quicker and being used in a different way. But maybe you can highlight on the differences and why an airline like Lufthansa or an airline like British Airways are not embracing it in the same way as Alaska does. But they do experiment, right? So I know a little bit the background, but can you tell me a little bit more about the differences between the approaches they take?
Obviously, what I would like to see is more airlines adopting this like Alaska Airlines, right? They're doing the right things, I think, in the right way. Having said that, there is a lot of different ways to approach this as an airline. Whereas Alaska chose to have us customize the hardware, sell it as an Alaska Airlines electronic tag. That doesn't only require vision, but it also requires buy-in from the different teams, the different departments, and not only buy-in, but capability. What they had the right people at the right time, at the right departments, with the right capabilities ready and lined up to do it this way. Total number of electronic BAGTAGs flying around with one airline is higher, for instance, at Lufthansa. We've been working with them for 7 years now. So the total number of tags flying around there is big. They are not pushing it as Alaska Airlines is doing. And that's a decision. It's mainly a decision of a frequent flyer program. And that's in the end up to the airline. We are here to provide the tools to the airline to give to their passengers. I'm not here to build a relationship with every single passenger.
But it's convenient, right? Walking into Frankfurt Airport, boom, no more waiting again. Hey, you need to do this paper strip around it. It's so annoying.
Well, be careful about stupid printed, because that was my entire life previously. Yes. That's where your cat scans.
Don't you think?
No, but I do agree. I mean, it lessens the frustration within the terminal. It reduces paper waste, and a big portion of baggage tags cannot be recycled. So there's nothing green about a baggage tag, regardless of if it's a standard tag or, some of the newer tags that have come on using a different adhesive. None of it's recyclable. So Jasper's product is also responding to that.
But Jen, that would make your life so much easier if you don't have to design airports around those stupid paper printers anymore.
That's what it's all about. It's there's always there's multiple reasons for airlines to adopt this, right? It's most of the time customer experience.
I've been witnessing BAGTAG for the last 7-8 years now. And I've seen the evolution of the tag itself as well, which is funny to see. I remember the first one, you needed to screw them on the suitcase themselves. So I have a very expensive Rimowa and I wasn't seeing myself doing that. But then it turned out that the Rimowa actually had a similar system that BAGTAG is now also servicing. But the EBTs basically, they were changing the game, and over time, BAGTAG took a lot of that. So Jasper, please share with us how that evolution went and what's the current status of the technology in that area?
Well, you're completely right. I'll never forget our first unit. All the ball drop tests we built ourselves at the office, and I now have a lot of gray hairs. We came a long way, I would say. The first versions were, in essence, not much has changed. It's still an e-paper display, like the e-paper that you have in your e-reader or your Remarkable tablet. That's the same technology that we use for our displays. And we use it for a couple of reasons, and we will remain using that for those reasons. Is one, they're very energy efficient. Our latest electronic backtags don't even have a battery. We're able to generate enough power from the NFC chip in your phone to update the display. And e-paper has the very nice characteristic that once you update it, it remains that way. So you could tear down the entire device, pull out every electronic in there. The display will still show you what you updated last. Obviously, in baggage, that's a very nice feature. Funny story, I was at Lisbon, as I mentioned. I arrived there, I had a bus gate, I drove around the airport, and I saw far away from the aircraft, laying around a piece of luggage. I think it fell off a baggage cart or something. That piece of luggage will probably be there for days. So during those days, you'd really like your information to be visible on the tag. So that's where the e-paper comes in. It's very energy efficient. It's very durable. If you protect it with the right cover, it can endure any of the operational rough circumstances that suitcases are subject to. Other than that, we have in the original devices that still includes RFID chips because we want it to be compliant and compatible with any system out there. In terms of innovation, you'll see more coming up. So BagID, it's one of our hardware partners. They are also connected into our platform. They have already integrated Apple AirTag chips in their tags, as well as the Samsung alternative. And we'll see more of that happening. I think there's a big shift in the industry going on, right? With Apple opening up to airlines and AirTag sharing information. And that you will find back in electronic backtags.
So you're going to install a system. How much hardware at the airport needs to change in order to accommodate an EBT?
Nothing. That's the beauty of it. It always takes time to explain and more time to prove because everyone wants to see it for themselves. This doesn't work at my system. My system is different. This is a funny story, actually. There's one airport in the world that was not allowing electronic backtags because they believed it to acquire an EBT scanner. So one of our airline partners who was facing difficulties with this airport said, "What's up?" So they went there and then the airport asked, "So did you bring the EBT scanner?" And they were like, "You mean any barcode scanner?" I told them I'd be happy to build an EBT scanner and sell it to them, but they didn't take the bait. Kidding aside, it's backward compatible. So any barcode reader, any RFID reader is able to accept them.
Fascinating. BagID, to avoid misunderstanding here, we're talking about the Norwegian company who made an incredible piece of hardware that includes an AirTag as well. I believe they are very good on the way to essentially become the next evolution of what you started. So you're pointing out that you have your hardware partners targeting directly to consumer markets. So you are more running the platform right now. Am I right?
Yeah, this is really what I see as the evolution, not of the concept of electronic BAGTAG, but as of the company BAGTAG. We started out with the goal of building this piece of hardware. As I mentioned, we recognize the fact that there's a need for a standard for a way of communicating, a way of integrating, a need for network effects. Without network effects, a concept like this will never really take off, I believe. Putting that aside, we are indeed shifting to be more of a, people call it a platform. I'd rather call it an ecosystem where we have currently 17 airlines. We have 5 different hardware pieces connected, many hundreds of thousands of passengers registered into the ecosystem as well, which I think positions us very neatly for next steps in the journey of BAGTAG. And we are becoming more and more of a digital baggage ecosystem rather than an electronic BAGTAG provider. And this is what I want to do, because we have all the pieces of the puzzle are here, and we are now looking into bringing on more digital baggage solutions, whether that's pickup and delivery, tracking, or whatnot, into this ecosystem.
I have a question for you, Jasper. Probably 10 or 15 years ago when I first met you, we were talking about rerouting. And if a reroute was required for a bag, you guys were kind of up against that and how you address that situation. Have you found the solutions for that?
Yeah, we have basically 3 different levels of solutions for that. The easiest low-tech one, not my favorite, cover up the device with a sticker. I don't recommend doing that. The second one is we have software available that allows a baggage handler to simply wipe the screen and then attach a paper tag. Or if you're serious about rerouting electronic bag tags, we also have software available to like super users, for instance, ground handlers or baggage handling agents of the airline, to reroute the electronic bag tag with new information so that you can override the security mechanism, so to say.
It's funny, yeah. I know a little bit about the cruise lines, how they are working nowadays. And in many occasions, they use a completely different system than we are used to at the airport. For cruise lines, it would make total sense to provide this kind of applications and basically use an update to bring it to the right deck and to the right cabin on the ship and vice versa, because you can instantly do that. And I can see a lot of innovation in this field coming, by the way.
Yes, that is touching upon one of the things we're currently working on. We'll be announcing a self-updating electronic bag tag that is going to be perfect for this use case.
We have a scoop, Jen.
We get it. Yeah. So you guys are kind of the missing piece between a whole ecosystem where you can check a bag pretty much at any area, whether it's an Uber or Conrack or anything of that nature. You have options.
Yeah, it's funny, Jen, that you're seeing it because I have a vision about this as well. You know, I have an opinion and a vision always. But luckily, because Jasper and I live in the same village, we would like to walk the dog once in a while together. And we have a philosophy and we walk around and we say, okay, how is the future of baggage going to look like? So Jasper, I know, has a vision which is based, of course, on the physical tag. But Jasper, what kind of innovations do you see besides your own innovations, which are so relevant to bring baggage to, let's say, this century?
I think that we all agree that for the wrong reasons, baggage has been overlooked for decades. Maybe it wasn't a sexy enough topic to be discussed in the boardroom, or passengers didn't really care about it. But that's why I'm so happy that in these days, and I think it's been the last couple of years, maybe since you started shouting more and more, Marlon, about how baggage has to change in the industry. But we're seeing more and more stakeholders in the industry making it a priority. So first of all, I'm very happy about that. Speaking to which innovations are going to change the world of baggage, to be honest, I think that what we're doing with e-paper displays, it has an expiration date. I don't see any reason why in 20 years from now, you would still need a display or a paper tag for that matter. You will need identifying features, and you will need a set of solutions that are making your journey pleasant and easy and seamless. But the actual tag itself, it has an expiration date. Having said that, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we are operating in a completely interconnected world. So for change of that magnitude to happen, every single stakeholder should get on board. And this is always what's, I think, slowing down innovation in baggage. You have to walk at the pace of everyone in the chain.
Luckily, we have spoken to some airline executives in this podcast as well. So we are challenging them, and I'm sure they will be listening to this conversation as well. And it's interesting because things like IoT, for example, in other industries, they are being embraced relatively quickly, and it takes forever in our industry. Is it also due to regulations? Is there where the limitation is? Or is it just airline executives in ivory towers not caring about baggage? What is it? Why is it so difficult?
I think regulations are not necessarily helping the speed of innovation. I mean, they're necessary, don't get me wrong. Back in the early days of BAGTAG, we had a lot of challenges with the battery that we had in the device. It was fully IATA compliant, but try and explain that to someone sitting behind a desk who has to make a judgment call, allowing an electronic tag on board or not. So that didn't help in terms of IoT adoption. I think another challenge is that the technology was not where you want it to be to yield the results you need for this to be adopted. It could also have been too expensive at some point. And I think that it is also not an easy puzzle to solve. I mentioned you're going as fast as the weakest link in your network. And I think the puzzle that I like to solve every day, which is one of the reasons I love my job, I mean, we all know this big hairy goal of we want to go full tagless or this or that. Everyone believes in that vision. The challenge is, how do I make this 100% vision? How do I make 10% of that worth your while? Because if I can do that, we are getting on the right track. And that's what it's all about. And I think that we are now, from a technological point of view, ready, getting increasingly ready to do that for the industry. And this puzzle is being solved more and more and more efficiently. That is key. You're never going to get from 0 to 100 in a day. That's going to take years. So you have to make sure that the journey is already worthwhile joining.
Yeah, I have to give it to Jen because she paved the way for our printed BAGTAGs. They were introduced in 1982, and the printed BAGTAG is here and will stay here for a long, long time. I've been talking to some IATA people over the last period of time. Another example, for example, is the adoption of, we diving into it too deeply, I guess, but the acceptation of XML messaging, for back messaging. It's going so slow, and that's already a digital process. So that's not even replacing legacy. How does the next 10 years look like? Of course, you and I have been fighting for a new and better baggage journey, renewed baggage journey. But the reality is, like you just described, there's a lot that needs to happen before we can replace those damn paper BAGTAGs.
Definitely. It's, of course, hard to speak for the industry, but I think we're going to see a next level of seamless in many ways. And you're already seeing it, like the combination of biometrics for people within the DCS, right? So, for instance, the recent acquisition Amadeus did of VisionBox, I think, is a great example of how biometrics are finding their way into the more legacy kind of systems across the industry. We're seeing the same technology, as you know very well, Marlon, of course, applied to baggage. And I think that this combination, together with what companies like BAGTAG are trying to do with more IoT kind of approaches, is going to result in a more seamless way of traveling. What I think our contribution can be there is connecting dots and realizing and accepting that there is no silver bullet, right? There is no panacea. We need a plethora of solutions to get the journey to where it can be. And I think there's going to be a next level of seamless where all these things combined can be bigger than the sum of its parts.
I like that. And I think that we have to be getting close to really a big uptake on technology. The technology is finally there. Passengers are all over social media putting the pressure on airlines and airports to be better and do better. The airports need more room, so they need to force as much of the check-in off airport grounds as possible. So in my tiny little brain, I think we can't be that too far off from technology really being utilized efficiently at airports.
Yeah, well, what I always say to the airline peers that I'm talking to is that they all try to reinvent the wheel. So here in Europe, they're all doing the same thing and they have a different approach to the same thing. Why isn't that we all learn from each other? Why isn't that one of the airlines is going to Alaska saying, listen, what you guys did with this tag and with BAGTAG is just fantastic. Let's copy it. And by the way, we have something else that's very interchangeable with, and that's, I think, the real problem. Innovation budgets are going to the same stuff. And we started this discussion about interoperability. And I think that's the key to cater a passenger. We all forget the passenger and we all forget the passenger's bag. And that interoperability is the key thing here. And I think, Jasper, this goes beyond the bag journey that we know from check-in to arrival. This goes to the hotels. It goes to the cruise ship. It goes everywhere. I would say, dear airlines, go and collaborate on this one because that's how we learn best and make sure that we have systems in place.
I agree. So, Mr. Van der Meer, tear down those walls.
I will. I didn't make a lot of friends with this podcast because I've been very, very critical towards some airlines, but they shared a lot of good insights with us. And I'm having high hopes that they all saw the light in the last 2 years. And the baggage chaos helped us in one way. It was may be necessary to open everybody's eyes. And we have seen some great initiatives. And on the other hand, if you pay $50, $60 for taking your bag, you can expect a decent service. It's that simple. And I would like to have a discount if I'm not consuming this stupid paper tags. If I'm using something like Jasper's BAGTAG. That's how I see it. And I'm just fascinated by your 10 years of existence, and you just like started. And this is also illustrating how slow the adoption in the market is. So I would like to hand you an award for being very tenacious about what needs to happen. And I'm with you, brother. We live in the same small city in the Netherlands, but we need to fight. That's what we need to do.
I agree. Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, it's been a journey and we're only getting started. That's true. I love it.
You have a fantastic team, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll tell them, but they're great. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Jen, do you have any questions? I think if you ask Jasper, he can work with BAG-ID, and from Norway they will send a very nice package to you to Chicago, and you can experiment yourself.
I think I have one of the very first renditions of a BAGTAG. I think before there was any take up on it. So I'm pretty confident technology has changed internally there. But yeah.
You looked at the damn thing and thought, oh, here goes my career back in the days. Was that how it worked?
Hey, I was just working my angles with Jasper to see how we can add a paper tag to that.
Jasper, I have a last question for you. How does the next 5 years look like for BAGTAG?
I think I alluded to it a couple of times. We are on the journey of becoming a digital baggage ecosystem. We are connecting more and more dots as well as solutions into the ecosystem. My goal, not sure if it's going to be able to achieve it in 5 years, but my goal is to make every bag digital.
So that's a wrap for today's episode of the Bagfather. A huge thanks to my fellow Dutchman, Jasper Quak.
Come and bring it, Marlon. No?
For joining us and sharing the journey of BAGTAG, how digital baggage tags are shaping the future of travel and making the checking process more smoother than ever. If you want to learn more about BAGTAG and their latest innovations, head over to bagtag.com or just follow them on LinkedIn.
Remember, we would love to hear from you. Get in touch with us via the email on the show page.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow traveler and aviation enthusiast and passionate baggage people. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for more baggage talk, right here on The Bagfather.
This is a Fresh Air production, brought to you by Baggage Media.